Islam. Thank you for that, Sheik. Thank both Sheiks. Islam. So we continuing with the same format that we have for the past two meetings, where we're gonna have discussions on current events and how it impacts our people in our community at large. And so there've been a lot of current events that Sheikh Muhammad brought up prior to the opening of the meeting that we're going to get into pertaining to COVID and political things of that nature. So, Sheikh Muhammad, you there?
It's long.
You want to give a synopsis on the COVID-related news? And we can discuss that?
It's long. Basically, there's been some new developments as far as the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned. You have two new strains that have been discovered, which is a mutation of the novel coronavirus, which comes from out of the SARS family of viruses. It's a autoimmune deficiency. So what basically it does, it attacks the lungs and causes pneumonia. And this pneumonia is what makes the lungs alveoli shut down, and you basically drown within your own fluid, unfortunately. So with that being said, with these mutations, they have a more vicious attack on the system, which needs to be taken into consideration. While forming with the vaccine, may peace be upon him, a famous baseball player by the name of Hank Aaron, he died 3 days after taking the vaccine. There has been another COVID-related death with a doctor who took the vaccine and passed away shortly after. So,
well, it's long. Well, sorry to interrupt you, but it was actually a couple of weeks Hank Aaron died, like 3 weeks. I believe he
3
took it on the
weeks.
6th, and then a couple of weeks later he passed away. Islam, continue.
Pardon me, Islam. It was 3 weeks, as the Sheik stated. And another relation is how. So basically, as a people, how we're going to deal with these situations. There's also legislations being passed. We have a new officer as far as it deals with public health. How is this going to relate to the passing of laws? And then also overall, how as us as a people are going to deal with this current situation and future situations as well.
Islam. So yeah, we're not going to focus on the political just yet. I know what story you're talking about. That's a very interesting story that we should discuss at some point in this meeting. So thank you for that, Sheik, for explaining all of the facts behind the latest events. So just to add on, and we're going to open the floor for more to add on. The problem with the virus is its ability to mutate, as the Sheik said. So there are two strains that are in existence, and although they originate in the UK and South America, respectively, people travel, and so these strains, have found their way or will find their way in the United States. It's just a matter of time. In terms of the vaccine being a solution, there's a principle with vaccines that's very important, which is called herd immunity. And herd immunity is achieved when a certain threshold of individuals become immune to a virus or whatnot based on the immunization provided through the vaccine. And so because there's so much public skepticism around taking the COVID virus and people are refusing to take it, reaching herd immunity is going to prove extremely difficult. Many people are, say it's how fast the virus came out. The vaccine came out, and this is true that it has not passed the modern standard, which is the stage 4 of the clinical trials where they study long-term effects. We have not seen that transpire yet, and so they approved it, without that 4th phase. But a point I had brought up earlier that I want to bring up is that polio, the vaccine for polio, was created in 2 weeks, and it had a huge success and saved potentially tens of millions of lives from and human beings now are not threatened by the polio virus. And one last thing I want to add on is we have to look at it from a perspective of, we're in the first world where our mothers, before there was the internet age, whatever, they gave us all the vaccines that, were available that were required for us to go to school, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's on the one side, they're injecting us, but on the other side, you have to look at it like many third world countries don't have access to these vaccines. And so they're dying from different things like malaria and different stuff that we don't even have issues with because we have, abilities to combat these diseases both proactively and reactively. And so, us being in this country, we take for granted the fact that our parents gave us vaccines and why our nation doesn't suffer from a lot of, suffer from certain diseases that other third world countries suffer from. It's because of vaccinations. So it's a very important thing that I wanted to kind of put out there. And I want to open the floor now for any Sheik's members or guests to share their thoughts. Islam, I see Sheik Muhammad has his hand raised, so I'm gonna turn the floor back over to him. And but yeah, please be encouraged to join.
Islam, peace. I just wanted to correct something that I said earlier. It's not coronavirus. The novel coronavirus is not an autoimmune deficiency disease. What it is a severe acute respiratory syndrome. So it's a respiratory disease. That's why I broke down the lungs and the parts of the lungs in which it shut down. So SARS is severe acute respiratory syndrome. Coronavirus is a part of that family of virus. As the Sheik mentioned earlier, that this virus has actually been on the planet for a very long time, longer than supposed human life, over 22 million years. But the reason why it's called novel, because it's new. Novel is Latin for new. So this is a new form of the virus. So the reason why it's becoming more dangerous and endangering us more is because now that this new virus is now mutated and it already mutated twice, and these mutations are starting to spread this long.
Islam. Anyone else want to share their thoughts, perspectives, knowledge on the subject? So with the Hank Aaron situation that the Sheik brought up, he was 86 years old at the time of his death, and at this current moment in time, as of the news of the past 24 hours, his death, the cause of his death has not been determined, and so people are just associating it with the vaccination because he publicly made it aware that that's what he was doing. You know, trying to encourage our community to take the vaccine, and then a couple weeks later he passes away, and so people are presuming that that's why he died. But we have to take into account he's 86 years old, and we don't know what was his cause of death. And so, but that I just wanted to kind of put that out there to try to be as objective as possible. As Sheikh Muhammad just sent me a message, whatever. Correlation isn't causation, and that's exactly the point. You know what I'm saying? Just because two events could be perceived as linked doesn't mean that one event caused the other. You know. But it's long. So, what are people's perspectives on the vaccine from the facts that we just presented? Have you been enlightened about the subject matter? Has it give you a kind of something to think about? Have you changed your mind at all about it? Like, what's your perspective on the vaccine? Do you have any questions about it? Do you fully understand, the implications? Talk to me, Moss.
Islam, I got something that's been on my mind, even like with this new strain. So now the vaccines that they have out now, they want people to take it. So now let's just say, majority of people take it, and now this new strain pops up. they're gonna have to come up with a new vaccination, or is the one that they putting out now are people gonna be, immune to the new strain coming out? And I mean, like, are people gonna have to get another set of vaccination to deal with the new strain? And it's just been on my mind. It's like, yo, what's going on with that? So,
Yeah, Islam. Yeah, that potentially is the case. That because the vaccine mutates, there's no guarantee. I mean, because the virus mutates, there's no guarantee that it won't mutate in such a way that the vaccine will no longer provide immunities from that particular strain. In which case scenario, they would have to come out with another vaccine for us to have immunities to that particular virus. Which is why I said back to the herd immunity. Herd immunity will basically make the virus obsolete. It will die off because it will not have enough hosts to continue to live on. And the majority of people will be immune to it. And so it will no longer be problematic. But yeah, to answer your question, absolutely, it's possible that we could see another vaccine or a proposition of us having a vaccine as soon as the next coming months, depending on how rapid the mutations can occur. But in the hotter months, the mutations occur in much more rapidly and much more frequently. In the colder months, it's very difficult for the virus to mutate in hotter months and hotter climates because of the heat's effect on its protein structure. Islam? So the floor is still open, more for questions. Just what I mean, like anything that you know about it, or even the legality of it. What's the odds that we'll be forced to take them? What measures is likely, to occur in terms of what steps government is going to take? We're going to get to that in a second, because there is a political thing that's happening in this city that Muhammad has shared with the Sheiks that we're going to discuss momentarily. But I kind of want to make sure the more is with me. At the very least, just give me an Islam. Let me know you're here, you with us. You know what I'm saying? You just don't really have nothing to add at this time.
Islam.
Okay, peace. I yield the floor.
Islam. Floor's open for the Islam if you want to talk. Maybe he was just Islam and just to say I'm here.
Okay, Islam.
But if he doesn't say nothing, you got the floor.
Okay, peace. Islam. First, I rise and give all praise due to Allah and all his divine prophets. And I want to thank everybody for coming on the call today. Islam, my name Eric Akers-Bey. Peace. Yeah, Morris. I think this whole thing is political, man. I think it's all political, and it's probably going with their plan that they already had in place to vaccinate everybody with whatever stuff they want to put in it, either chips or whatever they're doing. I'm definitely not for the vaccine. I also feel that, yeah, if everybody's running out, Biden claim, I think he's going to try to vaccinate 100 million people. So all the people that want to volunteer, let them go, get the vaccination, and the rest of us should be good. That's my thinking. So yeah, I'm definitely not for the vaccine because all the people that's taking it, a lot of people having symptoms after negative, they dying, or parts of their body can't move. So yeah, I'm definitely not with the vaccination. Islam and peace.
Islam. Definitely respect that. And a lot of people share your sentiments. I think that, the majority of our people feel that way. And, a lot of it is due to mistrust of authorities, governmental authorities in the past, and how they treated our people. And these are legitimate concerns. Is there an ulterior motive behind the coronavirus? Well, we have to be scientific in our approach in terms of we need to be looking at the numbers. How many adverse cases? Because now we have to look at cost benefit analysis because, many of us are in an age range where we're not as susceptible to fatalities, but we also expose our, loved ones who actually are. Some of the people who are older than us by a number of years. Our parents, our grandparents are very susceptible in terms of mortality rates for their age bracket. And so we have to take that responsibility to really look at this in a scientific way. We can't just dismiss it, based off of what the government has done in the past. Is it truly a pandemic? Are people truly dying? Is this really a virus that's affecting people? And then let's look closely at the vaccine. The numbers are available, on the government website, and I'm going to look at them in a second. I'm going to try to find them as we continue to discuss it. But it's a legitimate argument that Brother Eric Akers-Bey brought up. But we have to look at it at a more closely, more detail. Unless he's already done the research and he has numbers that he wants to present. We need to look at that now before we have to make an informed perspective. You know what I mean? At this stage, I understand your perspective. Let's sit back and watch. You know what I'm saying? And I haven't taken the vaccine personally. You know what I'm saying? I don't have no intentions of taking it in the near future, but I want to look at this because we are, a lot of us, people in our families look up to us, our knowledge and wisdom, and it would be irresponsible of us to not really look at this. You know what I'm saying? So with that said, I want to open the floor back up, and I'm going to look up the numbers right now and try to share that with the brothers and sisters as well.
Hey, Tom, I guess the floor is open. It's time to speak what's on your mind. Let us know how you feel.
All right, I opened up the link. I guess I'll share my screen. I haven't read it yet. We're going to look at it together. All right. So this is the covid.cdc.gov. So this is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Y'all see that? Let me know if y'all can see it.
Islam, we can see it, Monson.
All right.
We can see it, Sheik.
So we have 24,704,417 cases with almost 200,000 new cases. Average daily cases per 100,000 in the last 7 days. So 54 cases out of 100,000. Right? Total deaths. This has been updated January 23rd at 1 o'clock, so not too long ago. About 10 minutes ago, they updated this. 412,592 deaths. And there's been almost 4,000 new deaths. All right, so we could view different metrics here. Right? So we see New York is where we are located. It is the epicenter. It's the darkest colored on this map, on this graph, and we see that it has the highest daily cases per 100,000 in the last 7 days. Hold on 1 second. We're getting I'm gonna stop broadcasting to have to let people in. So let me resume broadcasting. I'm gonna resume broadcasting. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we should be broadcasting. All right. So we see that, we're in the 70 to 100 new cases a day out of 100,000. Let's look at the death. There's a lot of information here, but we're not going to sit through all of that. Let's try to mess around with the metrics a little bit. Deaths. And this is just the last 7 days. Matter of fact, let's look at it since January 22. Let's do that. Let's go back to the cases. And let's look at it now. See, now the graph looks a little different. We're not as bad off as some other states. Excuse me. In terms of the case rates that are being reported in every state and territory. All right, so deaths, New York seems to have been hit hard in comparison to other states. So again, this is by 100 per 100,000. So I want to understand how we quantify this. If it's 100,000, if you have a million, then this figure is 1/10 of that figure. So you would have to multiply based on the numbers. In New York City, I don't know exactly how many people we have, maybe 13 million, 15 million, I'm not even sure, but this is going based per 100,000. All right, so it's not that it's 100 new cases a day for New York. It's 100 new cases per 100,000. Are we clear? You understand what I'm saying?
Clear.
So the figure of actually how many people you have to quantify using a calculator, you know what I'm saying, or multiply it in your head. Hey, Sheik Muhammad, I'm gonna stop presenting my screen. I don't know if you could do the math, explain the math a little bit better. I know you're a little better at math.
Islam. You basically made it very simple. What I would like to do is just present it with a smaller number. So you have 1/10. So 1 is 10% of 10. You need 10 ones to make that 10. So what you're doing is basically dividing. If you want to look at the whole, then you multiply. So 1 times 10 is what? 10. If you do 10 divided by 1, it goes into it 10. So simply to look at it is to divide the number of cases by the whole. Islam.
Islam. So I'm gonna share my screen again. I'm gonna do the math right quick for the Moors, just so we can get a perspective. All right, because we're calling this a pandemic. Let's get a perspective. Right? We have 15 million people. Let's say we have 15 million people in New York City, right? And 1/10 or 10% of 15 million. Right? So to get percentage, we'll say 0.10 times 0.10. That's 10%. That's 1.5 million cases. Because see, I want us to really get the magnitude of what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? So you see 100,000, it's like, oh, 100,000, that's not that bad. Or 100, that's not that bad. But that's out of 100,000. When you're talking about millions, the amount of people now are quantified with by the rate in which you quantify the figure itself. So 1/10 is 1/10, no matter what number, whatever number you put in it. But 1/10, that's 1.5 million people. Okay? Since, what's it called? Actually, the number's even higher because I put a smaller. I use 100, so I actually lowballed it. It's more than 1.5 million people, according to these statistics, that have been affected by COVID. Not since the beginning of the pandemic, since January of last year. In 1 year, 1.5 million new cases of COVID in New York State alone. Excuse me. Oh, my figures are actually even off. I did New York City. Hold on one second. What's the population of people in New York State? Because I did 15 million. Hold on one second. I figured. Sorry, Moors. Like I said, math's not my best. New York State population. Okay, so it's not that bad.
It's 19.45 million.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna say 19.5 million. So I'm gonna just put that in the calculator real quick. 19 point, wait, 19,
1,950,000.
1,000,009, almost 2 million new cases in the state of New York. And we live in the city, which is the epicenter because the population is so condensed. And so this is how the gravity of this, and us being, we are in our 30s and 40s, a lot of us brothers. Even some of our sisters, you know what I'm saying, they're in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s. We are literally the leaders of our community. This is our time, over the time right now. And a responsibility of, saving lives in terms of, advising people, informing people, and putting the proper information out there and in context. It falls on our shoulders. You see? So this is why we're having these kinds of discussions, because we really need to think about the impact of this. All right, so that's a significant amount of people. And again, that's just within the past year. And so, people who have pre-existing respiratory issues, very, very young children, and the elderly, they live among us. We come in contact with them. And so just because we good from the COVID, we have to also think, all right, well, what about these vulnerable populations and what it would take? But we also have to weigh the negative aspects of it. How many people are experiencing adverse effects to the COVID virus? Let's look that up. Adverse effects, COVID statistics. Let's see. No, they haven't given me it yet. Are you sending me a link? Okay, mute your mic, Sheik, and break that down. I'm looking something up anyway. Sheik Muhammad, could you just share that with the Moors?
Islam, something that we have to take in consideration. When you look at the mutation of the new novel COVID-19 virus, it's attacking children. And when you look at the one from UK, it's undiscriminatory when it comes to age. So our opponent keeps changing. So the ways of going at this is going to have to change as well. So.
Islam.
Islam Sheik, Assistant Grand Sheik. Floor is yours, Mo. It's good to see you. Good to hear.
Islam. I give praises to our prophet, Noble Jew Ali. I give praises to John Givenzel, Richard Dingle L, Timothy Dingle L, all the Grand Sheiks in the past. I give Islam to all the members, all the Sheiks online, all the guests. It's Assistant Grand Sheik T. Sadat Rael. I greet you in peace. Yeah, one of the adverse effects of this whole scandemic is, the so-called experts telling you to stay in the house. And I just had a conversation with the Grand Sheik not too long ago, telling him I had some health issues. And most of I'm an advocate for health, as far as holistic health, exercise. This is something, I live by, but I was having some health ailments with my circulation in my legs, and also my legs, started to turn black. My feet, my legs, in the form of eczema. So, as we know, as it states in the 101s, as our illustrious prophet told us, black, according to science, means death. And so literally my circulation, my legs and things of that nature was literally dying right before me. And I was trying to figure it out. Although I had heard about the lack, what can happen due to the lack of vitamin D in the past, I got a recent blood test and my vitamin D levels was at an all-time low. And one of the reasons why my vitamin D levels was at an all-time low, because some of us who are working remotely from home, you need the usual sunlight that you would get by going out from your day to day. You're not getting that. So because of people being in fear of getting infected with COVID, a lot of people are staying indoors more, yet you see the homeless population out more. So you got to ask yourself this question: if this quote unquote virus is what they say it is, how come the homeless population is so strong now? They're out more than ever before. And one of the things that's protecting them is the fact that they're getting vitamin D from the sun, which strengthens your immune system. When you stay inside, it weakens your immune system if you're not getting that appropriate amount of sunlight. And the fact that as Moors, as Asiatics, we need to be out in the sun more because we're more melanated. So it takes longer for the vitamin D to process. It works almost like photosynthesis. So with that being said, if you research some of the symptoms and side effects of lack of vitamin D, it include digestion problems. It weakens your immune system. Also, you can get sick a lot easier for you to get sick. You can have skin problems, eczema. You can have joint and bone problems, and it takes longer for any type of wounds or injuries to heal. The list goes on and on. It's a long list, from something as simple as getting sunlight, vitamin D, especially if you don't eat dairy, which, I really don't eat too much dairy. And so with that said, as soon as I took a supplement for vitamin D and started getting more sunlight, all those symptoms started to go away. But it was because of, not getting those, because the best form of vitamin D you can get is from the sun. Also with that, who's to say that, chemtrails that are being put out there are not blocking, the sun rays from the sun. So that's something that we also have to take into account. And I had a friend of mine who was a very dark-skinned brother, highly melanated brother, who passed away, and he wasn't coming outside. So guess what? His immune system was compromised, and he wound up passing in the hospital, and he was only about 50 years old, and he passed away in the hospital. And part of that was due to not getting, in my opinion, not getting the appropriate sunlight to have the immune system strong enough to fight off any type of illnesses or symptoms that he had. So one thing I will recommend to the Moors is, we at the top of this new Gregorian calendar, top of this fiscal year, when you get your annual checkup from your doctor, from your MD, your medical doctor, make sure you get a blood test, check those blood levels, and see where your vitamin D level is at. If his vitamin D level is low, if you're having problems with sleeping, depression, nausea, digestion problems, injury problem, nagging injuries, eczema, breathing, all that comes from lack of vitamin D. I would suggest get a supplement, get some type of natural supplement to get that vitamin D in your system. And then also vitamin D also gives you energy. It's also going to give you energy as well. So one of the key components of this scandemic is to keep you in the house. Now you're getting sick from not getting sunlight, and in your mind is due to the COVID or coronavirus, when actually it's due to you not getting the appropriate amount of sunlight, the appropriate amount of vitamin D. So research it and you'll see. Research and you'll see all these effects of lack of sunlight. It's less people out now. It's less things to do. So not that many people really are out right now. But in certain countries, like in the Caribbean, South America, Brazil, Colombia, people not dying of COVID like that. They out in the sun. It's strengthening their immune system. And there's a brother, KT, the Arch Degree. I believe he also sells some natural holistic vitamin D supplements. So with that, I'm not going to take too much more on the brothers and sisters' time. Look into that. get your blood levels check, see where your vitamin D level is at, and take the appropriate precautions. And with that, I'm gonna say peace.
Shalom, appreciate that, Assistant Grand Sheik. That's very important right there. All the information that you just shared. So that's something that we could do proactively to protect the ourselves from, you know what I'm saying, experiencing, you know, fatality or some major, you know, health, you know, catastrophe by getting the sufficient levels of vitamin D. So definitely. I was looking for statistics on, because see, what I look at is that there's two sides of the aisle, right? You have a side of the aisle that is weary of taking the vaccine because they perceive that there's some ulterior motive or not enough data to substantiate support in taking the vaccine or it being administered to the public. Then you have others on the other side of the aisle that are arguing empirical data as the saying that the you know, yes, there are adverse effects when taking the vaccine for some percentage of people, but they say the percentage of people is a very small. Like, for example, the CDC claimed that in terms of anaphylaxis, there's only been 5.5 per 1 million. 5.5 cases, 5.5 out of a million cases. And that's dealing with, if I'm not mistaken, anaphylaxis is dealing with the closing of the respiratory tube in your throat. I'm looking for specific statistics though. You know, fatalities. You know, how many people didn't die,
What you
but
need, man?
something really bad happened. We need statistics on people who have died. How many people per capita, you know, have died taking the vaccine? How many people have experienced adverse effects, that like serious adverse effects from the vaccine?
Islam.
Not like just, you know, a rash or whatever, or, you know, pain for 2 days in their arm, like serious adverse effects that
Yeah, like the people who came down with Bell's palsy, etc. I got
right
it.
that compromise the quality of life that
Indeed.
you share.
Give me about 5 minutes, man.
Because okay, Brother Taylor L shared some articles and he said the Sheik is right and exact. I'm not sure what Sheik he's referring to or what the articles are stating. So I like the brother to if he can, if he's in a position to unmute his mic and kind of share with us the articles that he shared in the chats. You know, just for future, because people will potentially be watching this later and not have access to the chat. So if Brother Taylor L, if you're there, Slow-Mo, you could unmute your mic and the floor will be yours.
Islam family, first I rise to my highest heights, giving all praise to Allah. Greet all my brothers with peace. This is Brother Taylor, Devin Taylor L. Peace to all the family. Good to hear you. This Sister and Grand Sheik. Long time no hear, long time no see. I know we all in this dealing with this coronavirus stuff right now, but I just wanted to add on. Whatever we was demonstrating about, you know, the vitamin D levels and us taking care of ourselves, getting checked out. I actually went through the same thing. I actually caught coronavirus when it first came out, before you know, there was any vaccine or antibodies or anything of that sort. And once I got better, they started running tests on me. And one of the first things they did was run a blood test. And my blood test results came back just as you. My vitamin D levels was extremely low, like it was in like the red. Then after that, they ran a couple months went by, and they ran another blood test on me, and my blood showed that my vitamin D levels was also low, but it wasn't dangerously low as it was before I got sick. But my zinc levels was also low. In addition to that, I wanted to add on to what you was also demonstrating about the sun. a lot of people don't know that the government and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have a program with Harvard and MIT trying to block out the sun. They're supposed to be actually this year releasing like some kind of balloon into the atmosphere that's going to release some kind of like small nanoparticles that's going to help reflect the sunlight back into space to keep the Earth from supposedly global warming. Now, we all know that this Earth goes through cycles. So we have our cold cycles and our warm cycles. This is also how, the Earth tectonic plates, how we read it on 101s, the Earth shifts. So we all go through different cycles on this plane, you know what I'm saying? So them having, a lack of knowledge, or maybe they do have the knowledge, they're trying to, stop this cycle of the Earth, quote unquote, warming itself, where there's actually really no conclusive data, even that I've seen, that the Earth is hotter than normal. But this is what they're working on. So I just, put it in the chat so you guys can see. I'm an old biology major, so I mess around with like a lot of old science journals and stuff for fun. So that's what I just put in the chat. I yield the floor. Islam, peace.
Peace, Islam, brother. Thank you so much for your testimony and sharing your insight on the subject. Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement that we need to watch our vitamin D levels. I think that was probably one of the biggest takeaways from this meeting so far. Islam? Hey, Sheik Muhammad, did you find any figures pertaining to the adverse effects, allergic reactions, things of that nature?
Before he go into that, I just want to finish up with that vitamin D, how important it is, because I've been taking it before this pandemic started. But even if you buy like over the counter, how they say like what's that? I'd say 1,000 IUs or 3,000. Us as melanated people, even that is too low for us. So even if you take what Western philosophy says, this is the standard, this is what you need, that's still too low for us. So we have to take, and of course, depending on how melanated you are, you have to take the high amount of that. That's why I recommend if you do get that vitamin D, try, of course, to find a best all natural one that you can, because, vitamin D made in the lab, that definitely is not going to help us out in the long run. But with that, I yield the floor.
Islam, this is Brother Taylor L. Just to add on to what the Sheik Tzadeeq Bey just said, I recently just broke my toe, and also like the Sheik before, Sheik Tune, he was explaining like it's hard for you to heal. So normally I'm like Superman, I heal, give me a couple weeks, couple days, I'll be all right. But I've been dealing with this toe for since Christmas, maybe a little bit before. And I'm getting frustrated with it because I'm not, healing as quickly. So I went to the podiatrist, and, everything is synced so they can see all your lab results. And I'm taking this super vitamin D, 5,000 units in one little pill. And he's telling me, because he's an Asiatic as well, he's Haitian. And he was explaining to me that I need to actually take double than what they're explaining to me, because like the Sheik just said, because we're naturally a sun people of the sun, I needed to take double in order for me to get any results. And since I've been doing that, my toe has actually been getting a little bit better, quicker than it was. Because before it would be it would hurt if I walk on it too much, and it would take me forever. But now, it's it seems like it's getting better at its normal pace as it before this COVID stuff was happening. So, I yield the floor. Peace.
Yeah, I found some data on the CDC. I'm just gonna read it.
Islam.
It says, Islam, you found some stuff, Sheik? Let's go with you guys.
Yes, pardon me. That's why I asked for 5 minutes, because I didn't want to give it from just one source. Got a couple of sources relating to the CDC and the numbers of adverse effects, and then we have the COVID-related deaths from an international source. So I'm gonna read them out after you present your sources. Well,
All right. Well, I don't got much to read. I'm just gonna read what it says. It says serious adverse events. Serious adverse events were defined as an untoward medical occurrence that resulted in death, was life-threatening, required inpatient hospitalization or prolongation of existing hospitalization, or resulted in persistent disability, incapacity. So these are all of the things that will fall in that category of a serious adverse event, according to their study. The proportions of participants who reported at least one serious adverse event was 0.06% in the vaccine group and 0.05% in the placebo group. So in both groups, when they conducted the study, both groups were less than 1% of all the people that were studied in the study. I didn't look at how many people were in the study, but just so we clear, you have a group that's actually administered the vaccine, and then you have a group that's administered a placebo, something that's not the vaccine. And then they give them the same questions or follow up with their medical records the same. And so you didn't really see a significant difference, a 0.01% difference between the people who actually were given the vaccine versus the placebo effect. That way, you know what I'm saying, they can determine, it's the way a scientific method is set up so that they can determine whether or not it's the vaccine that's causing it, or is it just, they tell all the people you're taking the vaccine, but only half the participants actually are. So they can get the most accurate figures. So everything from cardiovascular, appendicitis, all of these things were, looked at upon with the CDC. So I'm gonna turn that over to the Sheik Muhammed now, see what he has in addition, to see if it matches up.
it's long. Okay, so this first article is from statnews.com. And this is the CDC reports rare allergic reactions to Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine. As we know, there's different suppliers for this vaccine, Pfizer being the biggest and Moderna being second. So we're not going to go through the jargon, we're just going to look at the numbers. As of January 19th, there have been 15 confirmed cases of anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis is a condition where your body gets introduced to an antigen and you become hypersensitive. After receipt of Moderna's vaccine and 45 confirmed cases of anaphylaxis after receipt of Pfizer vaccine. The CDC said in a statement to Stat that it works out to a rate of 2.1 cases per million doses of Moderna vaccine and 6.2 cases per million doses of the Pfizer, according to the agency. Anaphylaxis is a severe allergic reaction that can be life-threatening if not treated quickly. Early monitoring of both the Moderna and the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines indicate that anaphylaxis following vaccination is a rare event. So this is one of the adverse effects. None have been led to death, according to these source, and also the percentage is less than 1%. Now we're going to go to another source, US News. Less than 1% of people experience side effects from Moderna coronavirus vaccine, CDC says. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said in its morbidity and mortality weekly report that 0.03% or 1,266 of the more than 4 million people who have received the first dose of Moderna's COVID vaccine experience adverse effects. Of the recipients with side effects, 108.
Hang on one second, Mo. Could you slow down a little bit? Because there's a lot of figures, a lot of numbers are being thrown. I don't know if we can grasp it all. Would you read that last figure again and explain what it's related to?
All right, it's long. So The last figure is the morbidity and mortality weekly report. So this is the weekly report of death, basically, of what could be related to the coronavirus or adverse effects. Something that can cause death from
The
actual
virus
death.
or the vaccine?
The vaccine. So
Okay.
you're dealing with the morbidity, the cause of death, and mortality at actual death. So this is dealing, there hasn't been any cases of actual mortality yet. So it's 0.03% or 1,266 of more than 4 million cases who have received the first dose of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine experience adverse effects. Of the recipients of side effects, 108 were identified for further review as severe allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis. So they're saying it's less than half of 1% that even experience any side effects due to the vaccine. So out of 4 million people, only 1,266 actually experience any side effects, which none related in death. That's long.
Yeah, Islam. So there's a thing in science that's called a small sample size. And so what that means is you may make a presumption or you may, come to a conclusion about something you're looking at, but your conclusion is drawn off of very little data. So for example, right? I can't even think of a good example. Let's just stick with we'll just use what we're talking about in the COVID situation, right? So Hank Aaron dies, right? As a result. So he will be counted in the statistics of that less than 1% out of the millions of people who've already taken the vaccine at this point, right? And so people will say, man, Hank Aaron died, man, that vaccine's killing people. But that small sample of data, which is Hank Aaron, doesn't give you the understanding of the broader picture, which is, that a lot of people don't die. There are people who die from taking aspirin. Like they take aspirin. I worked with individuals with developmental disabilities. And one of the guys I worked with, I'm not going to give any of his, specific information, but he was of an Asian descent, of one of the Asian nations. And his family was very successful. And he himself was a very successful businessman, college graduate, very young man too, in his early 20s. Maybe late teens, early 20s. So he was already on the path to success and what have you. And from what I can understand in his medical background, he took an aspirin, had an allergic reaction, and became developmentally disabled. He was no longer able to talk. He was no longer functioning on a normal level. Using the bathroom by himself, things of that nature. This particular person. But would it be a fair conclusion to say, all right, well, this dude took aspirin and look what happened to him. I ain't messing with no aspirin. Like aspirin is messing people. Like, aspirin could, fry your brain or whatever. It could do serious damage to you. And this is what I mean by small sample size. And so we're looking at the data that's available to the public on this particular issue, and in terms of the safety of the vaccine, the likelihood that something bad will happen to you, and and whatnot is what we're really trying to look at. Do the costs outweigh the benefit? Is it gonna help more people, than potentially how many people it might hurt? And again, I want to go back to the point of that this vaccine is definitely, not vaccine, this virus is definitely killing people. People are definitely dying. It's something that is a pandemic. It's definitely something that's a cause for concern. This virus can mutate to a version of itself that becomes even dangerous to populations that's not really dangerous to now. So we want to get rid of this virus as a species. This is beyond, race, nationality, political affiliation. at this point. There's a lot of people speculating that the virus was created in a lab. I want to just look at empirical data that we could draw, things that we could say are as facts, so that we can inform at least on the facts, even as we give our opinion on the subject matter. We have to be able to distinguish the two from what we have available. Islam? I'm opening the floor up. Also, I just want to note, I actually have a friend. I just reached out to him. He's a close friend of mine. Went to high school with him. He has a bachelor's of science in biology. He's a research coordinator for a hospital here in New York, and his entire life revolves around science and the medical field. And this virus is obviously something that's a major, thing going on in the field of health right now, in which he works in. And he's offered to give him some time to answer some questions that more might have on the empirical data side, on somebody who understands the nature of biology and viruses. A lot of my understanding comes from actually building with him and kind of picking his brain, and he'll definitely be able to point you in a direction if you have any questions on it. I think that, and I explained to him, because he has frustrations on the skepticism of our community, and if they only understood, and but you have expert knowledge, and you come from our community, and you love our people. We don't have people in these fields that we can trust, and so I think if we had medical doctors that we know would never do Tuskegee against us, they would never, do anything that's going to be detrimental or harmful to our people or our children, et cetera, et cetera. We could actually go to these people and ask them questions. I think our community would be more informed and take a better position, in terms of how we should navigate in terms of health. I appreciate all our brothers and sisters who have the medicinal knowledge, the knowledge of the herbs, and the knowledge of, the ancient ways of health. But we need to combine that knowledge with, modern science, that the things that we could kind of, have an understanding of as well, and take both with us, chew the meat, spit out the bones. And this is what I hope to achieve. If the vaccine's not for us, then we need to come to that conclusion. If the vaccine's for us, we need to come to that conclusion. But I think that we need to look at all the facts, look at both sides of the argument, and make an informed decision. Obviously, whatever decision you make individually is going to be on you. But just as leaders in the community and as intelligent people within our own families, we should strive to try to get all the information about this, because this is literally a matter of life and death. Islam, actually, the brother just joined the meeting now. I have already, explained to you his background. He's studying to be a doctor. Beloved brother of mine, dear brother of mine, very loving of our people. We have conversations literally every day about the struggles of our people. And, I think somebody within this field who works hand in hand with doctors, who's doing research in the field, looking at statistics and data literally on a daily basis. This is how he makes his living. I think it, it'd be beautiful that the Moors have an opportunity to ask any questions directly to somebody who has the background knowledge, at least in terms of Western medicine. And so we could, take what knowledge that we have, and we could take what knowledge that the brother shares with us today, and we can make an informed decision and inform our loved ones on what we perceive to be the best course of action. Islam. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my brother Jerrell, and allow him to introduce himself to the family. Islam. Brother Jerrell, you have the floor.
Hey, what's going on? Good afternoon. Could everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, beautiful. Good afternoon, everyone. If anyone has questions, I'll be I'll give my best knowledge, of course, and see if I can help anyone. Now, Brother Amir expressed to me that a few brothers had some questions concerning COVID-19 vaccinations, whether it's safe or not. So I'm privy to any questions that anyone may have, and of course, I'll give the best information that I have.
All right, so this is an opportunity, Moors. You don't got to hold back. You can ask the questions, things you've seen on Facebook about, COVID-19, things that you have an opinion on, perspective on. if you want to hear from a scientist in the field about it, this is a more than a perfect opportunity. I'll even start off. I'll throw the first question. I want to kind of get all the perspectives that people have, that don't agree with the COVID-19. So there's some, like, for example, I believe the Assistant Grand Sheik brought this up earlier, and I think that this is a very good perspective, because when we look at the COVID-19 rates in Australia, they're dramatically lower in the rest of the world. Do you have a perspective as to why, this particular nation doesn't have as high COVID levels as the rest of the world? Sheik Muhammad, I got you right now. I just want to let the brother answer this question, and then the floor is yours.
Well, that's an interesting question. Obviously, there will be tons of data that one may have to go through to make a great conclusion on why the numbers in that particular country is declining. But if I had to take a stab at it, brother, man, I would say because their citizens is actually listening to their government. Our 45th president, Donald Trump, didn't do a good job explaining COVID, the impact of COVID, how dire COVID is. In fact, in these other countries they provided their citizens with the knowledge, the education, the information. And, many of these countries were able to develop their own conscience and their own opinion of COVID. And, they follow suit. Some of these countries also were mandated, under siege, and they couldn't leave and stuff like that. And that also reduced numbers. COVID is serious. And I'll just go about saying first and foremost that I'm getting vaccinated for COVID. So if anyone want to know specifically about the vaccinations, I could also answer questions with that as well. But to answer your question, they just follow protocol, brother.
Okay, Sheik Muhammad, you had raised your hand. It was something you wanted to ask or say?
Islam. Peace, brother Jerrell. Hope all is well with you.
Peace.
I just want to propose 3 simple questions.
Sure.
What is the COVID-19 virus? What is the vaccination? And can we trust the vaccine from a government that has harmed us in the past? Peace.
Cool. So what is COVID-19? COVID-19 is a virus that is from the coronavirus family. This coronavirus has been around for over 200,000 years. So it's not a virus that it's a very common virus as far as epidemiologists study. And with COVID in particular, Muhammad, it's just evolution, or rather a mutation within the coronavirus. So the reason why they call it coronavirus is because it's a virus that has coronas, and corona in Latin is crown. So it's called the crown virus, right? So how it works is, now keep in mind, these viruses are really small in comparison to ourselves. A lot of people think like virus particles are very, very small. So let's look at it let's look at coronavirus or COVID vira as a M&M, right? Little M&M. And the exterior of the coronavirus, right? What makes this virus so unique is that the outer exterior are the sugars of the M&M, right? So whenever someone sneezes who's infected with COVID, whoever has COVID, and they're sneezing or they're transmitting airborne particles, what happens is people around the host inhale these particles, these virus particles. So the virus, right, once it's in the system, our cells, our T cells, B cells, which are called immunity cells, they look at the coronavirus as M&Ms, like they're not supposed to be here, as foreign particles, saying, wait a second, we gotta get this particle out of here, right? So they undergo a process which is called penocytosis, pretty much a cell eating. When a cell eats any foreign particles in our body, whether that's other cells, that in anything that's foreign in our body, obviously our cells is going to try to eradicate it and get rid of it. So with COVID, that's exactly what it wants it to do. It wants, like, COVID want you to eat the M&M, because once you eat the M&M, the hard exterior shell that has all these, all these crowns, whatever, mind you, those crowns are sophisticated to target our cells. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally like M&Ms to a baby. Once our cells eat the coronavirus, breaks it down, inside the M&M is viral RNA. And this viral RNA undergoes a process called reverse transcription. And it basically takes our DNA and makes a template out of it, right? It takes its RNA and it takes our DNA and it makes a complementary strand. Because remember, DNA is double helixical, right? So after the RNA is copied into our DNA, that's it. We're infected. That's it. That's it. You can't go back from being. It's like having HIV or HPV. Like, once you're infected with a virus, that's it. So what's happening, brother, is that viruses have a message, a way of talking. It's called quorum sensing. How we're conversing right now on Zoom, viruses also communicate amongst themselves in their colonies, right? So the reason why they do this is obviously for survival. But viruses are not like bacteria. They do not want to kill their host. A bacteria is its own single genome. Bacteria, they don't care. They will kill you and go on to the next host. They don't need a host like a virus. A virus need a host in order to survive. Bacteria do not need a host in order to survive. So once the viruses know that, oh snap, oh wow, they got vaccines. Oh snap, they got raid. They trying to get rid of us. That's when the virus goes through a protein mutation. Once the protein mutation occurs, it's just like spores on mushrooms. It just try to, you sneeze, it's trying to get out there. So it replicates itself at a high rate. That's why we're seeing all these different variants. We're seeing the South American variant, the European variant, the North American. All these variants are just protein conformations of the same virus. So to answer your last question about vaccination effectiveness, it's pretty hard to, I'm gonna keep it 100. The reason why herd immunity is hard to capture with these vaccinations is just because of what I just told you, Brother Muhammad. These viruses are mutating at an alarming rate. Most mutations take place about 1 out of 10 to the 6 base pairs. Basically, out of 100, 1 million base pairs do a genome take mutation, meaning that it can mutate into something positive, benefit, anything, right? Coronavirus is mutating at an alarming rate, So although I'm taking the vaccination, that doesn't protect me from the following strand that may come out next week. I'm done, by the way.
Islam, thank you, brother.
No problem, brother.
Did that satisfy all your questions, Sheik?
Islam, yes. Me and this brother has talked about this plenty of times. I just wanted it to be known, and I have another question. If nobody else do, I yield the floor.
Right. I just wanted to, because I'm not sure if I heard, did you explain whether the vaccine was safe or not to take? You were saying you were taking it yourself, and a lot of people have cause for concerns. We were speaking about Hank Aaron, who passed away at 86, although his cause of death has yet to be determined. It was a couple of weeks after he took the vaccine. There are a number of people who have died. We kind of went over the statistics with the CDC, but kind of want to hear, what data have you seen and your perspective on it.
Peace, brother, man. Yes. So to answer your question, if vaccinations are safe, or rather, if I deem the COVID-19 vaccinations to be safe, I do. When it comes to vaccinations, there are several ways to actually create a vaccination. Now I understand why most people in the Moorish community, African American community, brown community are, you know, a little nervous or frightening about the government. Frankly, I am too. You know, we have the MK Ultra 2, we have the Tuskegee Project. We all aware of it. Jim Crow, our government lies to us. They continue to lie to us. You know, they know good, and we know that. You know, and to any brother or sister who make that argument, and hey, I respect it. You know, so it's like, what do we do? You know, we in a conundrum, a dilemma, if I may, right? It's like we can't trust the government, but at the same time, we got to do our due diligence and our own research to make sure that we're safe as a community, you know, because obviously COVID is hitting and affecting our community the most, right? So it's like, okay, many people are saying, you know what, I don't trust the government. They'll lie to us. They'll, you know, pump us with poison. And you're absolutely right. Like, you won't get an argument out of me with that when it comes to that. Like, anyone who choose not to take the vaccine because they're wary of government, I can't argue that. But what I can argue is that these vaccinations did go through phase 1, 2, and 3. They did not go through phase 4, which is called a long-term study. Working with leukemia. And you know, part of my job is to monitor data as far as protocols and drugs and new things that may hit the market. So particularly when a drug, any vaccination, I don't care what it is, it got to go through certain phases. 1, 2, 3. Well, rather phase 0 to 3. All of these vaccinations went through those phases, right?
Can you explain those phases so they can understand the significance of what you're saying? Just briefly, like kind of explain what happens in those trials.
Absolutely. Phase 0, a doctor says, "Hey, I got a drug that could cure XYZ." Goes to the FDA. The FDA says, "Prove it." Cool. So they'll start a small trial with about 15 people. Make a long story short, if it's successful, then they'll go to phase 1. Now, phase 1 is when they'll start to monitor the drug as far as dosage. They're still looking for side effects, but not much. They just want to see a larger study of people. So typically now we're from like 50 to 100 people in phase 1. It could be a blind draw or a double blind draw, but we're not there yet. We just want to see if we give drugs to patients, how it works. Cool. If it's successful, we go to phase 2. Now, phase 2 is interesting because now this is when we start to look for the side effects of a drug, right? So typically in phase 2, we like in year 4 or 5, right? So the argument what a lot of people are making is that COVID, these vaccinations only, you know, been around for about a year, 13 months. And that's true. But the reason why it's safe versus a drug that may be worked on for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, right? Is because once again, we have enough data on COVID patients, right? Where we could actually study and isolate the protein structure in which we're targeting. Basically, how a vaccination works is you're inoculating a part of the virus, right? You're inoculating a part of the virus, and you're inserting that inoculation inside a host, right? So when I'm getting
wait, what is inoculate? You got to be with the terms. You got to be real. Keep talking about people. You know what I'm saying? Whether they've been exposed to these terms or not, in the simplest form you can.
Sure, inoculating means isolating a dead part of the virus. So isolating a dead part of the virus, meaning like each of those vaccines has dead COVID particles. So to inoculate is to pretty much make dead particles of a virus or anything. Let's say if I want to inoculate blood, right? I'm killing off a certain part that I want to keep, that I want to obtain. So I'm inoculating or I'm isolating a part that I want, and I'm throwing away everything else as garbage. Do that make sense?
Yeah, but explain why you're doing
Why
that.
what?
Why would they want? Why would you want to inoculate? Why would you want to kill off part of the cell and keep part of the cell? Why is part of the cell part of the vaccine? Like, could you explain
Well,
the methodology behind it, the
sure.
pathology behind it?
Right. So what you want to do is you want to take with any vaccination, you want to take, like example with the flu shot. They're taking actual culture of influenza, which is the flu, by the way. They're taking flu, right? Flu viruses, and they're killing them. They're killing the flu viruses, and they're putting them inside of humans. The reason you do that is to build up active immunity within the body. That's how vaccinations work. Example, hepatitis B, right? You put hepatitis B, inoculated, dead hepatitis B particles that cannot grow. It can't resuscitate. It can't activate. It's dead. It won't come alive in your body. You put that in the human so they could grow immunity against that particular strand of flu or corona. So that's how vaccines work. You put a dead portion of the virus inside a person and they build active immunity against it. That's why if you got a cold, right? Let's say you have a common cold, right? You give it to your brother or sister, right? You're over it. They typically cannot give you back the same cold that you gave them, right? Because you just build up active immunity from the code that you just gave them. And that code hasn't had enough time to mutate. Now, keep in mind, let's say that code did have enough time to mutate, right? Let's say within your brother or sister, that those viruses in that body grown to another stage. Then you would not have active immunity against that same code that you gave to your brother or sister. And in some cases, like within old people, that can happen, right? Like a lot of old people, they don't have, like, their immunity is so weakened, their organs is weakened due to age, that they pass around bacteria and viruses amongst each other. That's why in nursing homes, they're vaccinating these old people with COVID the most. Like they're the target audience because their immunity system is so weakened that they could easily pass COVID to other people.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because I'm glad you flushed that out, so we can have a better understanding. But you were at, I'm not sure which phase you were at, but just to kind of wrap up the phase, and I know Muhammad has a question. I want to open the floor for others as well. So if you could just kind of wrap up the phases and explain why it's significant that it made it to phase 3 in reference to it being safe.
Cool, right? So I'll just get to phase 3. Phase 3 is very important for any drug to hit the market because you have to pass what is called a double-blind study. A double-blind study means that if I give you a drug, or if I'm given 200, let's say a study has, I'll keep it simple, 200 patients, right? No one knows who has the drug or the placebo, right? Not even a doctor. No one knows. It's called a double-blind double-blind study because literally not the control or the doctor knows that they've been given the drug. And what you do is you study the effect of that drug and did it work? And if you have a higher number, if you have a number that is granted by the FDA and it's typically around 95%. Like, the FDA in America is very stringent upon their approval for drugs. That's why a lot of drugs don't really hit the market like that, because obviously for good purpose, you know what I'm saying? We have to have high standards. So there have been many of these vaccines that didn't hit the market, but the Pfizer and the Moderna did.
Thank you so much for that, man. You've been giving up a lot of important, information, whatever. I want to open the floor for a second for more to ask more questions. If if not, Sheik Muhammad, the floor is yours. Just give him a second to open their mic. Floor is open.
Islam. I appreciate the brother coming on. I just had another question about the vaccines. How I've heard, I don't know about all of them, but some of them, Can you explain like why they had when they ship them, why they have to be shipped so cold, and what happens if I guess it reaches a certain temperature before it gets a person gets vaccinated with it?
Peace, brother. That's a great question. Yeah, you just answered your own question, my brother. When you have certain vaccines, they have to, in order to work, in order to be administered in the body, they have to be a certain temperature range. That's just with any drug, most drugs have to be administered at a certain temperature. It's just how it is. Like you can't, like example, I could give you a good like example. If you're doing like dialysis, right? Like giving blood to patients, right? That has to be at a certain temperature. Because if not, then you could ruin the homeostasis when you're introducing anything to the body. It's called a heptic shock. So if you introduce anything to the body and it's not at at its right core, the body can go into a shock, and we wouldn't want that.
Thank you for that, brother Jerrell. You have another follow-up question, or we have any other questions? The floor is open.
No, I'm good for now.
All right. Well, floor is open. If nobody, then Sheik Muhammad.
Peace.
Peace, brother
Hello?
Babel. Floor is yours.
Islam brothers and sisters. I'm gonna try to make this brief. I'm background a little noisy, but peace to the brother answering the questions. My question is why do, when we see the experts or professionals like Dr. Fauci, no one ever speaks on building immunity without having to take a vaccination? I understand Western medicine, that's their, that's part of how they, cure the people through prescription meds and vaccinations thus forth. But what do you say to somebody who is into herbal, natural herbs and vitamins and things like that, and who's never really had a flu or been sick like that? How do you tell somebody, hey, you're going to need to take this vaccination? Now, what you're doing is cool, but it's best you take a vaccine. Peace.
Brother, peace. I've been waiting for that question. Thank you. I was waiting for that because that's the question, right? Like, Western medicine versus herbs and Eastern philosophy, right? So I'll come on record right now and let the brothers know right now I'm in full support of Eastern philosophy. And what do you tell someone who never had a flu, never had a cold? Here, take this vaccination that it would kill you, right? And I guess this is where, like, I always say there's no right answer to that question because it's so deep in its nature, right? Like, I actually study medicine, right? I could break down so many biological functions, physics, chem, all that, right? But the entity, right? Allah, the God source, know all. You know what I mean? So who, like, and this is like, and maybe hopefully I can answer your question with just giving you a little background on why I love science, is because my approach to science is not to try to prove that God or Allah don't exist, but rather the brilliance and the magnifications of God. Like, when you study the human body, it's phenomenal. It's like any other machine, right? So for those who have a holistic approach to healing themselves, like, I would never tell them to take a I just won't. Like, I'm not gonna tell you to take a vaccination if you are holistic person, right? But what I will tell you though is that do the research. Don't be so negligent about doing the research. That's the thing about both sides, Western medicine and Eastern philosophy, right? Like both have to do the research. And I think if there are people such as myself, you, the brothers on the panel, right, that could have a little bit of both worlds, then we could be in a better space, right? Like a lot of these medicines and medications actually come from herbs, right? Like a lot of people who don't study science think that, you know, a lot of drugs are synthesized, which they are, but it comes from raw material. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these, you know, drugs and stuff like that are not just like, you know, benzene phosphate and, you know, things that you see in Coca-Cola. Like, nah, a lot of these drugs are actually made from herbs and plants and, you know, like example, like the HIV drug is made from a mushroom that costs like $5,000 just to produce, right? So that's that comes from a holistic perspective, right? So someone who unfortunately had HIV and he was worried about taking some from a holistic perspective. Well, Taxol, which is the active ingredient in HIV medicine, is actually 100% herbal, right? So it's like to answer your question, brother. To each his own. You know what I mean? Just I always say, do your research before you make any consensus on what you're doing. Peace.
Peace. Appreciate the question. Appreciate the answer. Anybody else has any questions? You know, thoughts?
Islam.
It's my brother Taylor L. He was first. You got the floor.
All right, yeah.
Now I yield to the Grand Sheik.
I appreciate that, brother. Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make a comment and a question. But the comment would be, you know, because we live in quote unquote modern society, I think sometimes you have to find a balance between the holistic route and then the, you know, Western medicine and doctors, for instance, like when I just broke down my situation with the lack of vitamin D, you know, I went to a medical doctor to have my blood drawn to see what their analysis is. And it was logical, it made sense. And they even agreed that, you know, a lot of Asiatics, you know, this is a European doctor saying a lot of Asiatics are going to be having these problems, you know, because they're in more and a lot of people are working remotely from home. Their children are learning remotely from home. So it's less activity in the sun. And then, you know, also it's winter. So it made sense. But at the same time, in the long term, the long run, there's definitely, you know, natural and holistic ways to obtain vitamin D outside of a prescription. Because I've never been one to be, you know, on prescription meds. Like that's never been a part of my life at all. I don't even get flu shots, but I don't get the flu. So I guess you have to find, you know, a person has to find their balance between both, because it's not like I'm living, you know, in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm living in the concrete jungle. My feet are not even touching the soil from the earths, you know, so I'm not in the Caribbean. I'm not, you know, in the wilderness, you know, I'm in a concrete minded society. So of course you have to find that balance, and I'm not growing my own food. So even if I'm, you know, under the assumption I'm buying something holistic, the reality is I'm buying something, even if it's from a health food store, something processed and packaged. It's not something that I grew on the farm myself, you know, like my elders did. So of course you have to, you know, obviously find that balance, because a person could put anything on the package, and put anything on the ingredients, but do you really know? If you're not cultivating the agriculture yourself, you wouldn't really know. That's something that we have to get back to as a people, again, is harvesting our own agriculture, so on and so forth. So that's just a perspective to give to the Asiatics, that, you know, we're in a concrete jungle, and even people who are quote unquote vegans and things of that nature, they're still getting it from a processed company. They're getting it from a commercial, you know, venue. It's not like they're growing these products themselves in the natural quote unquote environment. But my question to the brother would be, what is his take on the thriving homeless population? I have my theories in regards to that, but one would think, a novice would think that, the homeless population would be decimated because they're not wearing masks, they're eating out of trash cans, they're out every day, they're not sanitizing. And I see, and I live in the area where there's 2 homeless shelters, and these individuals are thriving. They're thriving. It's not like mass amounts of deaths and hospitalizations of the large amount of homeless population. And a lot of them again are taking over the subway systems and things of that nature. They're really out in large numbers. My analysis has always been that if you can survive in the street, it strengthens your immune system. Because you are being exposed to all of this bacteria, toxins, things of that nature. So I just wanted to get the doctor's perspective on the thriving homeless population, not just in New York, all throughout the country, and even in places like California, where they got like tents set up. They have a whole tent community of homeless people out there, and they're not getting vaccinated. They're not taking vitamins. They just out there just living. So I wanted to get the doctor's perspective on that.
Peace, brother. Wow. Thank you for that question. And I just wanted to say briefly, you and I share some very similarity when it comes to vitamin D deficiency. So I actually recently went to a doctor earlier in December. I was having some stomach problems, and I wanted to get it checked out. And long and behold, I'm still vitamin D deficient. So this was diagnosed back in like when I was 30. I'm 35 now. So back in 2015, same thing like you, my brother, vitamin D deficiency, right? So I wanted to share that because what vitamin D is called the sunshine vitamin, right? I'm sure your doctor said the same thing to you, right? And it's true. And most melanated people, it's weird. It's weird how vitamin D work, right? Because you would figure melanated people would have it, but it's kind of interesting because of our melanin, we barely absorb vitamin D from the sun. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's really the answer. I done a lot of research about it, and I read it. And just to give you a little background, you also mentioned like the back of the labels when it comes to these foods that we eat. And that actually got me interested in studying cancer because that was my pathway to it. I figured it was a direct correlation to how people consume food and the food that we eat, and to these cancers and diabetes. And there's no mistake about it. I mean, the data's out there and absolutely right. And then you touched on with Eastern philosophy and Western medicine. And I think that balances the truth. Like I'm happy to say that I know brother Amir L, and he's been my best friend since high school. And he's always had that keen mind in Eastern philosophy and kept me in square with a lot of practices. And just to grow with Amir on this scientific journey has been phenomenal. And the reason I'm specifying that, right, is because I actually know all of the chemicals on these labels. Like I could pick up pretty much any label and read it and actually know the chemical compound to it, right? It's because I studied it. So when getting back to Eastern philosophy, right, the thing is, it's crazy because our ancestors actually studied, they didn't study what I studied. They actually invented what I studied. But that's what's wrong with modern Eastern philosophy, in my opinion, right? It's like we'll take these herbs and drugs, we'll know the effect of it, and we'll know that it cures us, right? But could we explain it? Could we, right? We can't. But that's the thing, right? We need to break it down. We need to understand. And I'm not saying taking a Western modern approach to it, right? I'm just saying we need to understand what our ancestors provided for us, because it's no secret. When you study in math, science, yo, it all came from our people, from the roots, right? But then, you know, we're not gonna get into all of that stuff. Well, rather, I'm not gonna get into all that stuff. I'm gonna just keep it, you know, to answer your question, medicine, right? But with the homeless people, that's a great observation. Like if you're seeing many people that are destitute and homeless build up that active immunity, I definitely believe that. Like I said, like, you know, most scientists and doctors, they don't really try to destroy phenomenons. They just try to explain it and just try to understand it. So if you're noticing a bunch of destitutes from New York to California, a bunch of homeless people, and they're not being infected by COVID, then that's something to study. You know what I mean? Like maybe we should put our resources there. But this is the problem, my brother. We don't have our people discussing what we're discussing now, and you know, lawmakers, right? We don't have the resources to do our own clinical researches, right? Brother Muhammad, he's into the sciences, right? Let's say he go get his degree, just like I got my degree, right? We got to go work under somebody else's freaking project and studies, and that's the problem. We don't have the resources to conduct our own. You see what I'm saying? Like, my brother, I would love to answer your question and say, well, you know what, maybe we should investigate, you know, the destitutes and homeless. Maybe they do have active immunity against COVID, because hey, they could, right? Who knows? But I hope I answered your question to the best of my ability, and I hope you get well with the vitamin D. What I'm doing right now, just to keep it brief, I'm taking some vitamin D supplements, because vitamin D deficiency is a real big problem, and it could affect your bones and unfortunately lead to certain cancers in the bone. So if you are deficient in vitamin D, my brother, try to get as much sun as possible. You know, I know it's hard. We remote, it's COVID, or just take some vitamin D, D3, vitamin D3. Take about 5,000 IU. About 3 to 4 months, you'll be fine with the next blood chemistry test, my brother. But be safe, and I hope that turns out well for you.
Islam, Sister Francine, if you want to follow up, or you know, you have any other questions, the floor is open.
Yeah, peace. Yeah, just a response. Yeah, I'm definitely taking a vitamin D supplement. And it was something that I was told about years ago, but I kind of took it lightly. I was kind of ignorant to the fact, and you know, doing my research, I'm like, wow, this is really real. And it's a lot of people a lot of brothers, a lot of other Asiatics I spoke to, they got the same problem, vitamin D deficiency. Like, so this is not like just an isolated incident with just myself, yourself, you know, a few others. Like across the board, most people I spoke to that's Asiatics, if they went and got a blood test, that's what they're being told. So it's definitely real. And again, when you research it, you can see how many ailments you can have from that. It's like it's numerous ailments you can have from it. So yeah, definitely, I'm definitely taking the vitamin D supplement and definitely getting out more into the sun, you know, because that, you know, it still gets dark earlier. So you got to get out there, especially noon is the best time to get that. That's when the sun is at its peak. And that's actually the best time to eat a big meal as well, is those noon hours, 12, 1 o'clock. Get that sun, get that big meal in, and it'll digest and process properly. With that, I'm gonna say peace.
Hey, I'm gonna check on you. Peace. I really want to know your next blood chemistry. Seriously.
Yeah.
Ask brother Mayor, you know, in a few months if you, because I really want to know, man. But unfortunately, yeah, it affects us colored folks.
Yeah. So we kind of got a good understanding of the COVID. I want to thank my brother Jerrell for coming on again. We only have a few more minutes left, Moors. Within the next 10 minutes, we'll be looking to wrap up. So once again, if you have any questions pertaining to COVID, you know, the vaccine, its effects, and anything of that nature, now's the opportunity. You know, the brother afforded, you know, his Sunday afternoon to share this knowledge with us. So I will hope we take as full advantage as possible. As long, so I'm gonna open the floor at this time.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace. This is Grand Sheik Tzadeeq Bey. I want to give praise to the honors of the divine prophets, honors to everybody on the call. Peace. I just want to say that this was a very informative call. I learned a lot. It was really good to get a different perspective from a professional. And it shows that Brother Amir and Brother Muhammad, the Sheiks, they very much on point, even though they don't have their degree in that particular field. You know, a lot of the things the brother was saying, they were basically, you know, in accord with what the brother was talking about. And the brother, you know, he went into a lot of more in depth, but I really appreciate the brother being on the call. This was a very, very good call. And it shows that, you know, we as Moorish Americans in our particular temple, we're not some dogmatic, you know, people that we don't look at, you know, Western medicine from a professional perspective. You know, we have to have that balance, like the Moors has been saying. So I want to appreciate the brother for coming on the call. I thank Amir for, you know, having a brother on. And it was a very, very great call. And with that, I want to say peace.
Well,
Hey,
thank you for that, Grand Sheik. Thank you. Oh, Islam, brother. Go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say thank you so much, man. And it was so cool building with every more on a call as well. Like this was a cool experience, you know. This is what I like, man. You know, just seriously, like this is how we build. And you mentioned something about being dogmatic, and that's just, you know what I mean? Like we can't be dogmatic, but I understand where it comes from, you know. I just want to say in close, thank you, my brother. I appreciate the call. And if you ever have any questions, please, you can reach out to brother Amir, and we could always, you know, get in contact with each other.
Islam, definitely, definitely. We may have to call on you again as this COVID crisis and pandemic continues to develop. So I'll definitely reach out to you. You know, if the community needs some more questions answered. And once again, thank you for taking the time out of your Sunday to share this information with us. So, brothers, this is literally, you know, we, like I said, we about to close out soon. So if you have any questions, you know, or you need, you know, a little more clarity on things that have already been shared, now's the time. Islam?
Islam?
Islam,
Islam?
yeah, we can hear
Islam.
you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the brother one more question because a lot of our people, they believe that wearing a mask is not necessary. This is not a necessity because you see people who work in painting and other fields, they wear more heavier masks than we do, or which was prescribed against the pandemic because viruses are very small. Could he explain the difference between something being airborne and something being aerosolized? Peace.
Oh, peace, brother Muhammad. Yeah, for sure. I definitely think everyone should wear a mask. Even if you're not gonna get vaccinated, this virus is real. It's killing people. Over 400,000 Americans, you know, here in our country. You know, that's Asiatics, and it's mostly our people in our community. So I definitely recommend wearing a mask. And yeah, for sure. This virus is airborne, is not necessarily contact borne. So what do I mean by that? Like if someone has COVID and they sneeze on anything, right? Any subject, any surface, right? You know, the virus is not gonna survive very long. You know what I mean? Once again, like people get viruses and bacteria you know, mixed up. Bacteria, yeah, bacteria could live on surfaces for a while. That's why, like, if you know, put certain chemicals on your hand, you know, take a X-ray light, you know, you can see the bacteria. Viruses don't work like that. Viruses are smaller than bacteria. They're smaller than our cells. and they have to be because they just really contain RNA. You know what I mean? So once again, getting back to like the whole Eminem thing, they just like the actual virus lies within the hard exterior shell. So in order to avoid getting contaminated with the airborne pathogens, you just want to wear a mask. Peace.
Peace.
Islam.
Islam, brother Tillel. What was yours?
Oh, I just had a simple question. The brother mentioned earlier that he's gonna get vaccinated or he got vaccinated. I'm not too sure, but it's along those lines. If you know, there's new variants coming out, right? Or they're out right now. Like in Israel, they have a new variant. We have a new one in South America and everything. So we get vaccinated now on this first wave, and then you get vaccinated again, but then you get a new COVID variant that comes out. So what are we gonna do? Is this gonna be like the new flu where you get a vaccination every year or every winter?
Excellent question, brother Taylor. Excellent question. And that we don't know. So to answer your question, yes, I have not gotten vaccinated. I'm scheduled to be vaccinated. And you're right. If I get vaccinated for these particular variants of strands that's out there, that will not protect me for the ongoing mutations. And is it gonna be like the flu shot? I take the flu shot every year. This has been my third consecutive year taking the flu shot. Unfortunately, I've been affected by the flu while I was younger. And I was affected by the bird flu as well, H1N1, and it was ugly. And that's why I'm also taking this vaccination, because I was sick for about 2 weeks when I was 24 years old, and it was horrible. It was horrible. It was one of the worst experiences I ever felt. Like catching H1N1, oh man, like yo, I didn't know if I was gonna live or die. And I was only 24 years old, and constant headaches, vomiting, you're cold, but you're sweating, right? So it's like, I don't think people, and once again, I have to reiterate, I get it, it's nervous. It's like, yo, I don't want this vaccine. Like, why would I get it, man. Trust me, I get it. But you don't want, it's not even about you. You don't want to pass this virus on to someone who could be affected. This virus, by the way, before we even wrap up, coronavirus is part of the SARS family. And SARS stands for severe acute respiratory syndrome. So I apologize. I didn't even tell y'all what corona mostly attacks the respiratory system. But the reason why it's killing people is because they already had underlying conditions. So imagine having like diabetes, right? And you can't breathe. That's what's killing the people. So the news ain't really telling what's killing people. It's the underlying conditions, right? Like example, most of the brothers on this line, praise the Lord, praise Allah, are healthy, right? So we come in contact with COVID, once again, God forbid, praise Allah, we don't. But unfortunately, if we come in contact, and please, I need to stress, I'm hoping no one do. However, probability with science tells us, if we good, if we don't got no diabetes, or we don't got no sicknesses, we never had no strokes, we don't got no HIV, we don't got no underlying conditions, we're gonna be okay, right? We're gonna be okay. That right, like we it's a possibility that we may live, possibility we may die too, but just keep it in 100. It's a chance that we may live in our age group, right? Cool. But let's say the brother who got cancer, the brother who got diabetes, who didn't go to the clinic. You know what I mean? He don't know he got diabetes because he don't got health insurance. He don't know what's going on with this dude. He probably got STDs. He don't know. Dude ain't been in clinic in 3 years. He catch COVID. He on a J line. He on an A line. This is what's happening. You see what I'm saying? This is what's hurting the community. Peace.
Peace,
Islam,
peace.
thank you.
Definitely. All right, Moors, we got time for one question, maybe two. So the floor is open, but we getting ready to close after this next question or so. Praise the Lord. It seems like we were able to satisfy a lot of the questions with the assistance of Brother Jerrell and the members who were voluntarily participating. And so we want to thank everybody who joined our meeting, everyone who participated. Hopefully you all were able to have some things to take away from this so that you can share with your loved ones, your family, friends, co-workers, and people just in your day-to-day life that you come in contact with. You know, this is a global pandemic. This is a pandemic that's affecting all of humanity. And so us doing our part and our due diligence in terms of learning more about it, especially for us as men, the protectors of our people, you know, this was very monumental and important that we had this dialogue. And once again, I want to thank our guest, Brother Jerrell, for coming in and answering all our questions and putting his expertise to good use for our community. And, you know, once again, you know, we'll definitely invite him back as this pandemic continues to, you know, harm humanity and any other health crisis. You know, this brother's always one phone call away from my own personal problems, and you know, I'm sure many other people seek his counsel for various different things. So, once again, brothers, sisters, those who you know joined our meeting, thank you. And we're gonna close out now. I'm gonna ask Brother Sheik Muhammad to close out our meeting at this time. Islam and peace.
Islam, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Know yourself and your Father God Allah, that you may learn to love instead of hate. Every man needs to worship under his own vine and fig tree, the uniting of Asia. Islam, I ask everyone to please rise, face the east, feet at a 45-degree angle, 5 up on the left, 2 up on the right. Repeat after me. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Jerrell. Amen. Peace and love, most.
Peace and love, brothers and
love.
sisters. Our
Peace,
meeting is at a
family.
conclusion. Peace.
Peace.
Everybody be safe. Navigate well.